Hi everyone, I'm your vegan Korean chef Jay, and today I thought we should make some green onion pancakes. But I'm gonna do two different types of green onion pancakes. One is Korean style, and the other one is Chinese style. 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I love this recipe. The Chinese style is almost like a pastry because you have to create these layers with the dough, and when you pan fry them up, it gets really crispy, and there's all these layers underneath, almost like making puff pastry though, but not as much fat. So okay, and I first got introduced to this Chinese style scallion pancakes when I was going to school going to school at the CIA in Hyde Park, New York, long time ago. I was a pastry student there, but I made because we used to get food there. It was part of the curriculum that you get either breakfast or lunch or dinner when you're a student. And the way the meal program back then, the way it was set up was that the pastry students never really got Asian food because all these other kids doing the culinary program rotates and they get to try all these different cuisines. And so the first thing my friends and we had these clique of Asian students from all around the world just used to hang out together. And what we did was we went to the international kitchen and made tried to befriend our the Asian chef that was in charge of the program. So that's what we did. We were kind of a little slick, and so at least I used to volunteer for her when she did weekend programs, teaching continuing ed, people who wanted to learn Asian cuisine during the weekend that were not students. So I used to help her a lot, and she used to um, feed me Asian food when I didn't want to eat the other type of food that they were offering for the baking students. Anyway, so we have 2 cups of all-purpose flour for the baking students. Anyway, so we have 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and you need boiling hot water. So for the boiling hot water, you need half cup. So we make a little well in the middle, and you put half cup boiling water right in the middle. And then what you do is you take like the back of a spoon and kind of like work the dough in. Okay, so when most of the hot water gets absorbed, what you're going to do is you're going to let it, this is hot. So you're going to let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. So we'll just pretend it's for 5 to 10 minutes. And then you're going to take about a 1/4 cup of cold water and add it to the dough. Well, you ideally want to let it sit for 5 minutes after adding the hot water so that you'll be able to handle the dough when you're mixing it in. But I got a little bit of an asbestos hand so I can touch up hot stuff. And you're gonna add about, this little spoon's about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So I'm gonna put about 3/4 teaspoon of salt. And a tablespoon of oil. Use something that's neutral, like vegetable oil, or I'm using light olive oil. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna mix it in. So depending on the humidity of your room and how you keep your flour, you may need to add a little more water. So just work it in with your hand, squeeze, try to get all that flour in there. Okay, so this seems to be a little dry, so I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of additional water. So the reason why they use hot water in this dough is that if you have like a dough that is a little wet and you use all cold water like this, and then when you try to roll it out, you'll have a hard time stretching it out and it'll just come back in. So what the hot water allows it to do is it partially kind of like hydrates the flour, almost like cooking it, so that the flour doesn't move around as much, if that makes sense. So this is what it looks like when the dough is worked all the way through. It's if you see my clean hand, it's wet enough that it's not dry, but it's not so wet that it will be sticky in your hand. So we're gonna cover this and let it rest for about half an hour. So what I like to do is I just put my dough on the counter and cover it with the bowl. Easy. So while my dough is resting, I'm gonna make the batter for the Korean pancake batter. So if you go to the store, if you go to the Korean store, I also seen it in like Chinese or Vietnamese stores also. They sell these Korean pancake batters. And the ingredient, it's kind of a little tricky. They're trying to prevent you from figuring out what's in here. So the first ingredient is wheat flour, then sugar, salt, tapioca starch, glutinous rice flour, potato starch, guar gum, onion powder, baking powder, dextrin, and then garlic powder, and then wheat gluten. That's a little ding 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 there. So what they're trying to prevent you to do is like make it a little harder to guess what's in here. So instead of using all-purpose flour and then vital wheat gluten added to it, what I did was take bread flour, which has higher gluten content than all-purpose flour. So I have about 1.5 cups of bread flour here, gluten content than all-purpose flour. So I have about 1.5 cups of bread flour here. Then I put about 1/4 cup of sugar. Because the sugar, when you weigh it, you need more in volume to get, actually, yeah, sugar is denser than all these other ingredients, so that you don't need a lot of it in here when you measure it by volume. So I have 1/4 cup of sugar here, and then I have 1/2 cup of tapioca starch, then 1/3 cup of glutinous rice flour, or Koreans call it chapsalgaru, and then I have about 1/4 cup of potato starch here, then 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, and 1 tablespoon of onion powder. I went a little heavier on the onion powder because the onion powder gives it a sweeter flavor than the garlic. So once you have all these ingredients in your bowl, just kind of whisk it with your whisk. I didn't add any salt because I want to do that by taste. I don't want to put too much salt. It'll get, you don't want it to have it too salty, especially if you're going to serve it with a dipping sauce, which I'm going to show you. It's very similar to the mandu dipping sauce. So if you wanted to, you could make a big batch of this dried flour mix and then just keep it in a container like this and label it savory pancake batter. And you just use it as you need it. So I have about 3 cups of flour, like dry ingredients in here. And what I'm gonna do is, I have this. If you see my other videos, I use pea protein powder to make egg substitute. So I just, have a bunch made already. So I usually go with a tablespoon of pea powder for about 2 to 3 tablespoons of water to replace 1 egg. So with this, I'm gonna need about 2 eggs in here. And each egg is about 2 ounces, large egg. So I'm gonna need 4 ounces. And each egg is about 2 ounces, large egg. So I'm gonna need 4 ounces of this egg mixture, vegan egg mixture. And to get the color, I'm gonna put a little bit of turmeric. This is another key ingredient in making Korean fried chicken, which we're gonna do in the next video. We're gonna make 닭강정 in the next video, and I'll show you my signature flavor, which is almost like if you ever had 깐풍기, which is kind of like deep fried Korean chicken, and then they flavor it with garlic chili sauce. And I'm gonna do one of those. I'm gonna also show you how to do orange sauce, that fake Chinese kind of like orange flavor, and the typical Korean fried chicken flavor with the gochujang, kind of like sweet, sour, and like spicy. Okay, so that's gonna be in the next video. So for this video, we're gonna add about a cup of water in here. Mix it all up. Actually, we're gonna go with 2 cups of water. It's smelling really good already. Okay, so it's a little bit on the thick side. So I have 2 in here. I'm gonna add maybe about quarter cup more of the water. Okay, good. This is looking nice. I don't want it too runny, and I don't want it too stiff either. So you're looking in between a pancake and a crepe batter, if you ever made those. You see how it runs pretty fast, but then you still can hold a little in your whisk. Okay, so this batter is done. And then I'm gonna add 6 of the green onions cut into like 1.5 to 2-inch pieces. I'm gonna add all this. Then I kind of like it spicy, so I have jalapeno here. I'm gonna put a little. I slice it in half and then slice it into little pieces. But I'm gonna give some to a friend who can't really have that jalapeno spicy, who can't have spicy stuff. So I'm gonna add it as I'm cooking for myself. The rest of them I'm gonna cook it without jalapenos. So once I have those, and then I'm gonna need about 2 cups of just the top, the green part, for my Chinese one, Chinese scallion pancakes. So what I did was I took the tops of the green onion and I sliced it really thin. And for the Chinese scallion pancake, you only want the green part, because if you get the white part tends to be harder, and so if you put that into the Chinese one, because what we have to do is we have to roll it and then we have to roll it out. Once you do that, these hard parts will pierce the skin and you're not going to have nice crispy pancake. So what I did was I took the bottoms of the white and the light green part and I put it into the Korean version. So when I did eat seafood back then, this is where you would put seafood like oyster, mussels, squid, but I don't eat those anymore, so I'm just gonna make green onion pancake here for the Korean version. So in here, if you had chives, you can also put chives in here. You can also put minari. That's really good too. Minari is like a Korean version of the watercress. So once I have this here, I'm going to use a spoon and mix this. And I'm also going to add some salt to this. I'll add about one and a half teaspoon. Well, let's go with 2 teaspoons. So mix this in, and you'll see that the ratio of green onion, and batter is a little bit less than 1-to-1. So I would have a little less batter. So this one's I think this is just at the border of being a little bit too much batter. So I would go with about 6 bunches of green onions and 2 small sliced onions in here. So this is ready to go. So we're gonna make our pancake here. You need a nice non-stick pan. Again, I'm using ceramic coated. Put a generous amount. I put about 2 to 3 tablespoons of light olive oil or any vegetable oil that's neutral. You want it to get nice and hot. So I have it on high right now, but I'm going to turn it down to medium when this gets hot enough. If you put the pancake in there before it gets hot, it's not really going to get the color and it's going to be kind of like soggy and not crispy. So the reason why they're using bread flour is you want that gluten in there to give it that chewy flavor. And then the tapioca also gives it that chewy flavor in the texture, and then chewy texture in the pancake, and the sweet potato starch also gives it that crispy exterior. So the bread flour is to give it the structure. So this is hot enough. We're gonna place a good amount. Depending on how big you want to make it, you know, just eyeball it. We're gonna turn it down to medium heat. If you want it more colorful, you can add Fresno chili in here. Slice that up instead of our jalapeno. I'm gonna put some jalapenos here. Okay, it's looking good. Okay, loosen it up. It's almost ready to flip. I'm gonna put a little more jalapeno. So we're gonna cook this about 2 minutes on each side on medium heat. You'll see the color, the edge getting golden brown. Kind of move it around if there's a hot spot where it's hotter. I can see that it's almost done. You can flip it with a spatula or I haven't done this in a while. Okay, I'm gonna flip it like this. It worked. You see how it's getting golden and you can see the texture. It's really crispy right now. So if you don't have enough water, so I ended up using 2¼ cups of water to all that dry ingredient. If you don't have enough water in here, it's not gonna get crispy like this. It will, at first it'll be crispy and then it'll get really soggy really fast. So about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes on each side, and it's done cooking. Oh, if you smell this, it smells so good. I'm gonna add a little bit more oil. Oh, if you could smell this right now, I'm like in onion heaven. Really good. I mean, I've seen something like this in the frozen section at Trader Joe's. You get like 2 little ones for like, I think it's like $6 or $7. You know, it's convenient when you're when you don't wanna, or when you don't know how to make it. But if you do know how to make it and you want something quick, yeah, it is convenient. But you could also make this and then layer it with like plastic wrap and then freeze it and put it into a Ziploc bag. And when you want it, you can pan fry it to get hot, or you can just throw it into your toaster oven or air fryer. All ready to go. We're going to flip it over like that, and we're going to serve it on that side. Look at this. Okay, so I'm going to add a little more oil. And then these, I'm going to make little ones. I'm going to make 3 little ones in here. Maybe I can do 4. Nah, I won't risk it. I'll do 3 little ones. My mouth is watering just watching this cook. So while that's cooking, well, since these are all for me, well, I'm not gonna eat it all in one sitting, maybe. But I'm gonna put some jalapenos in here. I mean, if you want a little bit of a spice or like that kick, but you don't want to put you don't want too much, what you can do is you can slice the jalapeno open and take all the seeds and the white membrane out, which makes it spicy, and just put in a little bit of the spice from the jalapeno like that. That's a good way. So if you make it big like this, you're gonna need to cut these. You can do it in wedges, or you can cut it. My mom usually did this. Into squares. And then you just put it onto a plate. So make sure you cut it all the way. I can't resist, I need to have a corner crunchy piece. Mmm. So good. Oh my god, this is so delicious. You have to try this. I'm telling you. Flip these over. Since there's not a lot of batter in here, it gets hotter quickly. Look, that one's almost burnt. So don't do that. I got a little excited eating this, so move the pan. It's still good. It's not animal protein, so it's not carcinogenic. So just make sure, like, if you didn't get good color here, you can flip it over and kind of like get color. So delicious. Okay, so I'm gonna finish cooking this later. Because I want to move on to turn it over and get it brown on the other side. Doesn't this look delicious? I mean, come on. I can eat this whole thing right now, which I won't do because I've been pretty good. I've been exercising and doing the raw diet, only eating a raw vegan food. The only exception is maybe beans and just beans. Yeah, I've been just eating canned beans in a salad with all these really healthy organic or raw vegetables. And I started to run again. So I've been walking about 3 miles per day, and now today is the day I'm gonna start jogging again. So here we go. Doesn't that look delicious? Okay, so we're gonna put this aside. And now we're gonna finish the Chinese style. So before I even start rolling out the dough, I'm going to show you how to make the Chinese 5 spice. If you don't have an Asian store near you, or you don't like certain ingredient, I'm going to show you how to change that. So typically in the Chinese spice you have star anise, okay, fennel seeds, cloves, Szechuan peppercorn, and cinnamon. So how you would make this is you take, if you have a little coffee grinder dedicated for spice like I do, I use this coffee grinder and I use it as a spice grinder. So in here, this recipe called for 6 pods of star anise. But I'm not a huge fan of the way the star anise tastes, so I only put 2 of the star anise. And then you're gonna put, excuse me, the jalapeno, I just inhaled it. So the cloves, you take 1.5 teaspoon of cloves, and then 1 cinnamon stick. It should be around 3 inches long. So this one is a really big one, so you could probably put half of this. More like this one. Okay, you break it apart and put it in here, and then 2 tablespoons of fennel. Put it in. Then the Szechuan peppercorn, you put 2 teaspoons. So if you can't get Szechuan peppercorn, I had to get this on Amazon because when I went to the Asian store, it was sold out during the pandemic. Like I guess Chinese people cannot cook without this, so like they bought it all. So if you can't get Szechuan peppercorn, you can use black pepper or white pepper even. That's a good substitution. So you put that in here and then you grind it all up. And that's how you get Chinese spice. So I have that already made. You're also going to need some sesame oil and a brush. And a rolling pin or dowel. So the dough has been sitting here for about half an hour. Just kind of work it to make it smooth. So just by sitting there for half an hour, most of the starch has hydrated with the water. That's what allows you to get a nice smooth dough like this. So the dough that we made with the hot water, we're gonna divide it into 4. Once you have it in 4, you're going to make it nice and round. Well, this is a technique I learned in school. It's called rounding. because you're kind of like, as your hands moving the dough, it pushes it on the bottom and then creates a nice tight skin on top. So if you can't do this by doing this technique, you can always practice, but you can take the dough and kind of like fold it over on itself. Or like you can put it on the counter and pull it towards you and rotate, and it will make a nice tight ball. Okay, so once you have a nice round ball, okay, once 5 minutes is up, you take one of the dough, you lightly flour the surface that you're working on. Kind of push the dough down flat, keeping it round. And you're going to use your rolling pin to get it nice and thin. So basically you want the dough to stretch out about 6 times its original size, 6 to 8 times. Or you have about 1/8 of an inch thick dough. See, if you didn't use hot water right now, even though the dough's kind of pretty wet, it will want to shrink back and don't let you shape it. Okay, roll it out, roll it thin. So this is around 6 times its original size. I'm gonna go a little bit longer. Some people even do this technique, which I haven't practiced enough yet. You just gotta make sure there's enough flour there, and you roll the dough on itself on the pin, and it kind of gets thinner. See how it got longer on this side? Then you do the same thing on this side. I need to practice that a little longer before I even attempt it again on camera. So what I like to do is I just kind of go around trying to push out the area. I don't stay in one spot or it's gonna just get long, or try to feel the dough. Wherever it's thick, you just kind of like go around. That's why I like these dowels more than the rolling pins. You have more control. There we go. So once they're nice and thin like this, you see how thin it is? Okay, it's not paper thin, but it's thinner than 1/4 inch and a little bit thicker than 1/8 of an inch. So in between 1/4 and 1/8. What we're gonna do is, if there's a lot of flour, you just kind of brush it off. Then you take some sesame oil. And I just like to put about a teaspoon and a half. This will kind of create like a lot of recipes I've seen uses vegetable oil, which I don't think, if you're gonna add flavor to this, you would add sesame oil right now. Okay, there was quite a bit of flour, so I ended up using about 2 teaspoons in here. Just enough to just kind of coat all of the surface of your pancake batter or dough. So traditionally they sprinkle this on top, but I don't like that. It kind of like has a strong flavor, the Chinese spice. Even if you put a little, I don't like that raw like spice flavor. So what I like to do is I like to sprinkle it on a little on the inside. So that way the flavors will also mellow out a little, but it will heighten kind of like that that umami flavor when the spices kind of cook out. So I sprinkle a little bit of that, and at this point, there's a little bit of salt in the dough, but that's not enough to season it. So I'm gonna sprinkle some salt in here too. Then I'm gonna take the green onions that just the tops. Remember, we only did the tops. I'm gonna sprinkle it out. I love green onions, so I'm gonna put quite a bit. But just remember, you need this for 4, so you can't just put it all in one. So I'm gonna divide it into 3 pieces that I have left over. Okay, so what you do from here on is you roll it. Try to make it a little bit tight. Not too tight, not like you're doing a cinnamon roll. A little bit looser is okay because you have the green onions in there. So once you have a roll like this, you're gonna make a snail shape like this. And you're gonna push down. Put a little more flour. And then you're gonna roll it out. See, if you put the white part in here, you're gonna have a hard time rolling it out without the dough breaking in all the places. See, I put a little too much of the green onion here, and then it popped out, but it's okay. So you're gonna roll this out about a little less than quarter of an inch. So you're gonna roll it out to about 8 inch in diameter. See, when I used to work at the hotel, it's hard to tell the difference between 8-inch plates, 7-inch plates, 8-inch plates, and 9-inch plates. So sometimes people would bring the wrong type of plates, and this chef would yell at them. This was a long time ago when I worked in the hotels. So what I did was I got a ruler, and then I saw how much my span of my palm measured. So this is 8 inches. And so I know that when I spread it out wide as I can, this is about 8 inches. So you're gonna roll it out about 8 inches wide, and you're gonna place it right here. Okay, and then you're gonna move on to the next one. Same thing, a little bit of not a little bit. Put a good amount of flour so that the dough doesn't stick. If your dough sticks and you roll it out and then you try to peel it and it rips, that's like the worst. So make sure there's a good amount of dough. The dough. There's a good amount of flour on there, and you roll it out. This is one of my favorite things to eat at dim sum or at Chinese restaurants or Chinese snack shops, because it's so simple, but it's really flavorful and delicious. Very savory. Okay, if it's sticking a little, move your dough to get the flour. And it doesn't have to be perfectly round, because when you roll it, you're not really, you get a chance to correct it when you turn it into a snail at the end before you roll it out. So to be honest, I wanted to make this pancake video, savory green onion pancake video, because I had a lot of green onions that were about to go bad. So I'm like, if I don't make something with this, I'm gonna have to throw it away. So this is something I can keep in the freezer. So the Chinese ones, you can freeze it like this. and then put plastic on it and freeze another one on top of it. And then once it freezes, take the plastic away and put it into a Ziploc bag. And you can keep it frozen like this and cook it to order if you need it. Again, we have a nice thin dough like this. Get the excess flour away. You're gonna put about 2 teaspoons of sesame oil. And if you don't like that strong sesame oil flavor, you don't have to use sesame oil. You can use the vegetable oil like the light olive oil or corn oil or whatever oil. I just don't like canola. Canola is like, the way they make canola oil, the process is not very good for the environment or for your health. So I try to avoid canola. Then a little bit of salt. And again, this is totally up to you. I like to put a little bit of Chinese spice in the middle instead of on top after it's fried. That's just my preference. You can try it both ways to see which one you like better. And then green onion, spread it around. Okay, then make a snail. Then flatten it. A little bit of flour. Notice how I'm making sure the dough moves around and I'm kind of like rotating it and then rolling it. So my pancake is somewhat in a round shape. So I'm gonna do the rest of these and then come back and I'll show you how to cook these. Okay, so we have rolled out our pancakes. And so we're gonna turn this on high at first to get it hot, but I'm gonna turn it down to medium low because this is more like a dough than a batter. So if you have it too high of a heat, it's going to scorch before the inside is done cooking. So I have about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, light olive oil for cooking in a pan. And I'm actually gonna take a lid also, just to make sure that it's cooked all the way. So when it gets really nice and hot, we're gonna turn it down to medium low. Okay, it wasn't hot yet, so well, okay, it was almost hot. Okay, you see this, the bubbles about to come up and the sound that it makes, the sizzling sound. So when it's hot enough and you hear the sizzling sound, the hot spot seems to be right here, so I'm going to pull the pan up a little. I'm going to turn it down to medium low. I'm going to keep this covered. So it will kind of like almost fry and bake the center at the same time. So we're going to do this for about 2 minutes on each side. I'll show. This one, trust me, if you have it even at medium temperature in the middle, it's gonna burn before it's done cooking. So You're gonna notice the difference between the Chinese version and the Korean version. The Korean one is more of a batter. The Chinese one is kind of like a dough. So you see already that it's already starting to puff up around the edges, and you see, if you look closer, it's starting to puff up here too. Yeah, that's good. See, we've only had it on there for about a little less than 2 minutes and it already got color like that. So I'm gonna let it go on the other side with the lid on at medium low, more towards low, for about 2 minutes. And we're gonna cook this. This is like my favorite thing to eat when I'm in Rosemead. There's a place called Mama Lou's Dumpling in Rosemead. And when we go there, they don't have a lot of vegetarian stuff, but this, I always get this. This and their some of their noodles, and we ask them to substitute tofu instead of meat. That's what I would usually eat there. And they have a vegetable dumpling there too that I eat. That place is one of the few places I look forward to eating when I get to LA. So it's been less than 2 minutes. It's been more like a minute and a half. Minute maybe. Okay, and now I'm gonna cook this without the lid. You see how it's getting puffier because we rolled it and it has layers, and there's sesame oil in there that's also helping it puff up. And I'm gonna turn it over. Oh, look at that! This is nice. You can hear it. That it's gonna be crispy. So if, like, I get really anxious sometimes when I'm making this, and I don't turn down the heat low enough. And what happens is when I cook it, it burns because I have no patience. But you know, cooking is testing your patience a lot of times, because you need to go through the proper steps to get the really good result. You can't skip it. It's like people. I see a lot of people in the food industry who wants to go from cooking school right to a chef. I'm like, no, you need experience. You cannot skip that part. That's very important. So you can hear it. It's like, oh, can't wait. This is so delicious. I usually don't even, like, they usually don't serve this with any dipping sauce. I usually just eat it like it is. That's why I like to season the middle. And I love this ceramic coated non-stick pan. It's so much better for you. Again, that when I used to have my own business, I decided to make that nurungji, which is scorched rice from leftover rice. And when I made it in a Teflon pan, it tasted like chemical spicy. And I was wondering what that smell was or taste was. And I looked it up and it said Teflon, when you heat it up, it emits a chemical that's bad for you. So especially, I remember when we were growing up, we had Teflon pans, and when we were kids, we didn't know any better to use a lot of oil when we make fried rice. And then we would have, well, we didn't grow up really, we grew up pretty poor. So we had old pans that are like 5 years old, and then all the black stuff is coming off, and we thought it was pepper, but no, it's part of the pan. So looking back, yeah, like, good thing we were pretty healthy. Other than that, my mom didn't buy junk food or fast food. We always had home cooked meal. Even though we didn't have a lot, we always had home cooked meal. So you see how it's getting nice and golden brown, and it's cooked all the way through, about 2.5, 3 minutes on each side. Now that's done. Oh, you should hear this. It's so crispy. I'm gonna take this one out. Put the next one in. You should smell this. It's so, oh my god, so fragrant. I can smell the 5 spice through the batter. But I know it's gonna be a nice kind of like toned down Chinese five spice. Because sometimes when you eat five spice, especially like when I used to eat meat a long time ago, we had the Taiwanese chicken, the popcorn chicken, and they would put five spice. Sometimes some places put too much of it, and it's so strong. You're like, but anyways, while that one's cooking, I'm gonna cut this one up. That crispy sound. Oh my god, it's so delicious. You see the layers? There's like layers of dough. Can't wait, I need to eat one. So good. So happy. And hot. But that's how good it is. It's simple. It was just flour, water, salt, oil, and green onions. That's all it was. And the five spice. That's it. I bet this will be delicious with extra virgin olive oil too. Okay, so these I'm gonna put in the freezer because I cannot eat all this. I'll be right back after to show you how to make the sauce for the Korean pancakes. So for the Korean pancakes, I'm gonna put about 3 tablespoons of Korean jinganjang, which is kind of like the deeper flavor for sauces and things. Then I'm gonna put dirgiram. Dirgiram is perilla seed oil. So you know the perilla seed, perilla leaves that you get at Korean barbecue, or that seed is what they grind in to make the perilla seed oil. If you don't have this, you can substitute it for sesame seed oil. Then I have unhulled, whole toasted sesame seed. And the perilla seed oil, I only put about 2 teaspoons. And then about 2 teaspoons of the sesame seed. I'm gonna put about a tablespoon of the vinegar. Then I'm going to put about a teaspoon of sugar. And I'm going to put about a teaspoon of chili flakes, Korean chili flakes. And you mix this up. It's got to have garlic. Nothing beats fresh chopped garlic. Okay, so I have about 2 cloves of garlic. And that's your dipping sauce. You could also add green onions to this if you wanted to. This perilla seed oil adds a lot of flavor. So crispy, so delicious. And then the Korean one, you can eat it with sauce or without, but I like to eat it with a little bit of sauce. Chinese style, scallion pancakes, and then Korean style, green onion pancakes. Either way, they're both delicious. And don't ask me to choose between the two because I can't. I love them both. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you again. The next video is going to be even more delicious. Do you see the yellow color from the turmeric? But you don't really taste the turmeric. It's just to put in there to have that color effect. And also, turmeric has an anti-inflammatory property, so it's good for you. But turmeric is a fat-soluble ingredient, so you need to ingest it with something that has fat. That's why a lot of Koreans and Asians put turmeric into fried food. India also, and Koreans put it into their fried chicken. So that's going to be your next video. So don't miss out. I'm going to show you how to make 닭강정, which is Korean fried chicken. I'll see you again next time. Thank you. And if I eat fast, it's because I have 2 brothers. When we were younger, if we didn't eat fast, we didn't eat, okay? So, bye.